Today's video, we're going to talk about long sales cycle conversion tracking on Google Ads, tracking sales up to months or years after your initial ad click. How you can actually do this, so you can A, offset or justify running the Google Ads by the sales that the Google Ads are actually creating, but B, also steer your ads in the direction of where the actual sales are coming from, which you can always do with Google Ads. I don't care if you're generating leads, you can track sales in your ad account and you can use your sales to steer your ads. And if your sales are occurring years later after the ad click or a year after the ad click, like you would have, like for instance in real estate, this is the norm, then you can actually track something that's close to or proximity to actual revenue, predicted revenue, and you can ultimately get the same thing done in terms of steering the ads while also knowing what the ROI is. Background or backup method I'm going to talk about in today's video. So many markets, anything where you're selling something for hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all of the above actually. The amount of time it takes for somebody to decide to buy, it takes a while. People make the mistake of thinking when you turn on your ads, the money should just start running out of the sky right away. The reality is what you're really doing is you're building up a pipeline of people that have came to your site but will come back and turn into a lead later and or buy later. And to really understand how to scale your ads, you got to be able to have some advanced tracking systems because not all the revenue comes in off of the initial ad click by any means. You have to run your ads for a while on a consistent basis to really see what your return is going to be on that consistent budget. That is, if you spend $100 a day, you're not going to see what that $100 a day until you've ran it for 6 months already. Let time for people to come back and buy, if you will. And then once you see what the return is, because you got these systems set up, then you could raise your ad budget knowing that another 6 months later, if you double your ad budget, your sales are going to double again. And you keep going through the process like this to scale an ad account for your business. For anything where people don't buy right away. For a $20 broom, people buy right away. You don't need any of these systems I'm talking about. But the more expensive of whatever you sell is, the more important it is to have these systems to know if you're making money so you can scale, because all the money is in the scaling part when running Google Ads. It's so much effort. It's so time consuming to get results on a small scale basis that if you don't end up spending tens of thousands a month at some point and as your end goal, it'll be very hard for you to justify all the time and money you had to spend just to get the initial budget that you have working if you don't have that big payoff or payday down the road. So I'll talk about what these methods are to track your revenue and use your revenue data to steer your ads, even though Google's system by default is only set out to track up to 90 days from the ad click and no more. But before I get into these methods, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability of their ads up front in excess of what the management fee is. We are the only agency out there on the planet that actually offers any kind of similar guarantee, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that I'm sharing on today's video. So with that said, getting into the content here, I have actually created a list of steps that you need to track your revenue overall so you know what your ROI is on your overall investment into Google Ads for yourself to know if you should start scaling up your ad budget, and then also inside your ad account so when you do scale your budget, you know exactly where to scale first. This campaign, this ad, this keyword, because you'll be able to scale much quicker when you understand what half of your account is producing above average results and scaling that first, a part of the account that produces a below average results. And you can do that with this tracking to get with this process I'm going to describe here through something I call proxy ROI or proxy ROI estimation. So with that said, getting into it. So if you want to track long-term revenue ROI, given that like in the real estate market, you're going to close houses, you're going to get a commission, the average houses are going to close for a year, you got to be able to track that lead as it comes in from Google Ads a year later somehow to see if it closes, to know if the initial ad that you ran was profitable after all your expenses. The main way you do this is by using a CRM system, taking the data from your Google Ads into your CRM system so that when you work those leads over time and your salespeople are updating those leads that come in to your CRM that are being fed there either manually or through, like embedding a form on your website so they show up there automatically, or exporting data from CallRail from the calls that you're getting into the platform automatically, which a lot of our clients do, because you got to have all your leads in there in order to really know what your return on investment is, can then set yourself up to have a running tally on what your return on investment is on an ongoing basis. That is, all the money I've ever spent on ads, what amount of revenue has it generated for me in total? Therefore, what my overall return on investment is. Like I mentioned before, your goal should be to find a ratio of sales sales revenue to ad spend that you're happy with, and then take your starting ad spend and get it up to that ratio, and then start spending more on ads itself. If you're doing lead generation, it actually tracks your revenue pretty well because somebody either gets to your site and they turn into a lead right away, or they don't. And for that matter, you can grab the details about what ad they clicked on and so forth up front with the lead that you collect. And then if they come back and close 2 years later, and you take your CRM and you have the data about what ad they clicked on with the lead data when it's collected, you can still see where that ad came from, even if the sale occurs 2 years later, as long as it's logged properly in your CRM when the lead initially comes in itself. And that's ultimately what you want to do to put yourself in a position of a rolling ROI figure that tells you, are you over that minimum ratio of sales to ad spend that you want, if you will. If you're doing e-commerce, by the way, and you're selling, let's say, high-end furniture that's $10,000 a pop, okay? A lot of those people that buy aren't going to buy on the first visit. Some will, most won't. And you got to expect most won't. So what you're doing is you're driving traffic to your site there, hoping they come back later and buy at some point in the future, especially after running remarketing ads to them as well. So in that case, because you can only track people up to 90 days itself, you can't use a CRM because they don't really turn into a lead before they buy. I mean, certainly if you're running an e-commerce site and they do often call or fill out the form on your site to ask a question first, through a live chat, start chatting with you, you want to collect that data in a CRM so that you can later on update the CRM with any sales you get, so you absolutely can see the amount of revenue that your ads are generating. But if it is a situation where you don't interact with the user at all, and they come back on average 6 months, a year, 2 years later to buy, you're not going to really have a great idea of what your return on investment is from your ad spend as a whole, because there really is no way to track it, so to say. However, in that case, in that situation, then you're going to use something called conversion lift testing and marketing efficiency ratio. So ultimately, conversion lift testing is you basically look at the sales you had for the last year, you implement your ad campaign, and then you look at the next year and you compare the sales you had the next year to your sales before. That is on an overall basis. And the change in sales is basically what your revenue was that you collected from your ads. And then you divide that by your ad spend over the first year there, and then you know what your ROI is. That's your conversion lift way of testing what your return on investment is on people that don't buy for a long period of time and have a large sales cycle window, as we talk about in the advertising space. That is time it takes for the average person who clicks to buy itself. The other way that you do it is something called the marketing efficiency ratio, where you take the total revenue in your company from everything, divided by your ad spend, come up with a ratio there that you're happy with. If your sales go up, you're going to keep spending more money and you're going to keep doing that over and over again. That's the easy way to scale. That's not going to necessarily tell you what your return on investment from the ads are specifically. Conversion lift testing will do that for you. But in that kind of situation where you have to tell if things are working via conversion lift testing, using the marketing efficiency ratio that you have, that is total revenue to ad spend, is also the way that you scale the easiest, because ultimately you can't screw it up. Either your sales go up proportionally to your ad spend, or you stop raising your ad spend until your sales go up another little bit so you can start to spend more. And if you go to your ad guy and you say, as long as I get a 4-to-1 ratio of sales to ad spend, I'm willing to spend an unlimited amount, it makes it easy for them to be able to grow your business as well and do things that don't have an immediate return, like remarketing. People see your ad, it makes them more likely they're going to buy a year from now than they would otherwise, and stuff like that. So I'm getting a bit off track here, but as far as to see what your return on investment is using a CRM, the steps are as follows. You're going to grab the Google Click ID or the source of the lead as it comes into your CRM. My favorite way of doing this is going to be using a CallRail account with the form tracking module activated. You're going to be able to have a copy of every form lead that comes in to your entire website automatically, just by having the CallRail code on your site. Seems like works like magic. Then you have the calls all tracked on your entire website because you have CallRail on your site. And so you have a copy of every phone call and form fill there sitting in your CallRail account. Then you use Zapier to send the data from CallRail to your CRM, so that as soon as a lead comes in, it's going to show up in your CRM. And then if your salespeople deal with somebody on the phone, when they hang up the phone, that lead is already going to be sitting there in your lead section on your CRM, and they could actually update that particular lead record in your CRM because it's already there. You want it that way because that record will be there with the source of the lead. Did it come from an ad? Did it come from somewhere else? CallRail always is able to tell what keyword they initially typed in, what the Google Click ID is. All of this information about the ad that they clicked on and so forth originally will be in the CRM with that person's record. Once you've done that and you've passed your information to the CRM as a result, you can actually pass your spend to your CRM. If you're using Salesforce, Salesforce, you can actually, through a integration with Google Ads, you could pass all the information about how much your ad spend is on an ongoing basis using Marketing Cloud to Salesforce, and then that'll also be able to pull in from your CRM and other parts of the CRM how much sales you're getting from your ads, and it will give you literally a rolling tab via the reporting as to, okay, lifetime revenue generated from Google Ads, lifetime spend from Google Ads, and then it has that ratio for you, so you literally can log in at any time, any day, and see, okay, we now have a 3.5 ROI. We should not raise the budget potentially because we need a 4. Okay, now we have a 4. Let's start raising our budget. It makes things so easy once you have this and know what your ratio of ROI that you need from your campaigns. Oh, a big sale hit. We just went from 3.5 to 4.2 ROI. Okay, now we can start spending more money on ads. You're never going to run out of ad money, and you're going to be able to scale very easily. So this is very useful to be able to see what your return on investment is. And all you got to do is just set up CallRail on your site, import your leads to your CRM, and not have your staff manually update the CRM with the information that they get from the lead on the phone or from the person who filled out the form, because it won't have all the marketing data with it itself. Now, naturally, you could add hidden form fields to your contact forms which will pick up the source of the lead and so forth. But then you have to worry about the salesperson copying it over to your CRM correctly when they go to log that new lead that came in. And the room for error there is too great. If you really want to know and do what I'm mentioning here to know what your true ROI from ad spend is by utilizing your CRM like it's supposed to. That's the main value of a CRM, is to be able to track your closing rates, all this other stuff, so you know if there's a problem with your sales staff or whatever, that you just use CallRail to get that data in there automatically, and there's no chance of anybody screwing it up when they were supposed to log where the lead came from. It's just there. Then you just got to tell your salespeople to update the leads that are there, whether they're good or they're bad, and then keep updating it until a sale occurs. And then it's easy to create a report in your CRM that picks up all the revenue from any lead that has this field marked Google Ads and so forth. So, and you actually can, set it up to where with CallRail, it will put in a certain field if it's from Google Ads. That way, creating a custom report later to see what revenue you got from the source Google Ads is not that hard to do. With some CRMs, there's going to be an automatic add-on to pull the revenue data out of Google Ads. If you're not using a CRM like that, which you could do that with Salesforce, for instance, you could have the CRM integrate with Google Ads through the API to pull in the revenue data itself. If you want a single report page that says what your total lifetime ROI from ads are, or you could just calculate it manually, obviously, and look at the total ad spend in Google Ads divided by what total revenue from Google Ads leads that have come in have produced, and then you would have your ROI as well. But it is damn convenient at any given time to log in and see what your lifetime ROI is from your ads when you've got all these leads that literally take months, if not years, to develop into sales. If you're selling new houses, you want something like this. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely hard to scale your ads. You're not going to know if you're going to go too aggressively, not aggressive enough. If you don't go aggressive enough with your scaling of your ad spend, you're wasting opportunities. If you go too aggressive, your bank account's going to start getting drained because it takes time for the money on the leads that you're collecting to actually come through and turn into revenue. The same thing applies with recurring revenue businesses where, like our own firm, where we have a monthly PPC service fee, we work with our clients. It takes time to get the value out of the client that we normally expect. So if we start spending too much too quick, yes, we'll get all the leads and eventually the ROI will be there, but short term, we could run out of money, cash flow to operate our business. So therefore, this lifetime ROI report is very handy to be able to use specifically for scaling. With this said, by the way, if you want somebody to set up your CRM, like I talked about, pulling in information from, CallRail with the leads, phone numbers and the like, so it's just sitting there in your CRM for your sales staff to then update those leads, you can reach out to us at our firm and we can do this. Ultimately, some CRMs are harder to work with, but it's generally possible with all of them. And we could do this for you. Just reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com and you could ask about it. And we can get this set up. And then I can also talk to you about your ads if you'd like. What are the things that you can do right away to get your profitability of your ads to rise along with it, and can share that information with you as well. By the way, we also sell a couple other things that may be handy to you. Ultimately, if you don't want to work with an ad agency to help you with your ads, you just want the CRM integration set up, we also do coaching. I've been doing coaching calls with different individuals that reach out from this channel, and everybody loves them because I'm able to provide so much value in just a 30-minute time frame, looking at their ads really quickly, asking them questions about how their processes are set up, and let them know what the bottleneck is in their system so that they can get their ads to start scaling again. I'm very good at doing this because I got 20 years of experience running ads. If you are in a niche market where we've already got results before, that is, like, let's say you're a dentist. We we've already put a dentist campaign together before. You're in Miami, we are in Dallas. We can give you the templates that we are using to generate rock bottom cost per lead in that market and high profits as a result of that. You copy paste those into your ad account there in Miami and get the same results we're getting with none of the time, money, and effort it takes to get to the same level of results for yourself. We've worked in over 100 different niche markets, so the chances are quite high that we've already got you the results you're looking for already by using that template, of which we can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com as well. Templates are so effective that people are using them to start whole other businesses from scratch. So with that said, now as far as knowing what overall your return on investment from ads is nice. It helps you sleep at night. It will help you understand when to start spending more money on ads, given the goal is always to spend a metric ton on ad spend and therefore get a metric ton of sales and know specifically when to start raising the ad spend at each stage or level. You want sales data though to actually optimize your ads with, because Google Ads is run off of an algorithm now, and the algorithm's trained to figure out who buys and who doesn't for you, because they want to help their users find what they want, so they want to click on ads in the future. And if you don't give it the sales data that you have, it doesn't know how to find you the customers you want, and therefore won't promote you as much either, because it doesn't know how to do it. If customers don't buy within 90 days typically, then you've got a problem, unless you understand how to do a workaround, which is alternative scoring method that's adjacent to tracking sales themselves. It's correlated with sales so closely, it practically speaking works almost basically as good as tracking sales in your ad account directly and optimizing on the sales directly. Using maximize conversion value bidding strategy, you can literally optimize for a certain level of profit in your account if you have sales data in there. And if you don't have sales data, you can use this alternative data to do almost as good a job scaling and optimizing your ads, and for the system to understand what keywords are working better than others, what ads are working better than others, and so forth. So with that said, if you can't track sales, because sales are normally not going to happen within 90 days, what you do is you could do one of three things. You can either track your lead score. So going back to CallRail, we'll have our client go into each lead that's listed there in CallRail and then score the lead between 1 and 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. You can do that and then have the ads optimized for leads that produce the highest average lead score, or you can do the predicted contract value. So you may not be able to close a deal, but you at least in the initial engagement, introductory call with the client, you can get an idea of what they're willing to spend, how expensive of a house do they want? What item are they looking at and how expensive that is? What did you offer them on the proposal in terms of a contract? How much was the contract value? Now, this is obviously not closed money in the bank, but it's a hell of a lot better than just optimizing for leads. Way better. You're going to get way more results optimizing for contract size or product size, because there's a huge difference in profitability for people who buy your $1,000 solution versus a $10,000 solution. And the guys buying the $10,000 solution, you want to be able to increase your cost per click so you get more of them, but you would only know to do that if you understood where those $10,000 are actually coming from, down to the keyword level and so on and so forth. So that's your second option. Your third option, when you can't track sales within the first 90 days because they just don't happen, is to do both. You score the lead and you also do predicted contract value. And you use both of those pieces of data to overall guide you. Generally speaking, itself, between these two, I'm going to go with lead score first, and then when I can't get any more out of the lead score, I'm going to go with predicted contract value. Why is that? Because you need a lot more estimated contract value estimates to get accurate results with that than you do with lead score itself, because lead score, it's more closer to being a binary result, so to say. So what I would recommend you do is you actually track both in your Google Ads conversion menu, and you go in your CallRail account, score your leads 1 to 10, and put in the notes box the predicted contract value, and then upload those by a manual spreadsheet to Google Ads, so that those two offline conversion goals, one that tracks lead score, one that tracks contract value, starts accumulating data. And then one day when you have a few hundred of these leads, or at least a few dozen of these conversions that came in, you could switch your campaigns to optimize for these things, either one or the other itself. So, and for that matter, what you're going to do with the lead score, if you want the most results, you can do what I do, which is to track the goal that you set up for qualified leads. The qualified leads goal gets triggered if you verify the lead is qualified on the phone, and then you score the lead, which is your conversion value. Because with the conversion, there's always whether the conversion happened and then the value. So in this case, your value is going to be the score of the lead, or it could be the same thing with the qualified lead for the other goal that you're going to set up. It's going to be whether the lead was qualified, and the value is going going to be the predicted contract value, okay? Once you've done all this and you've got this data here, you can start utilizing the data to your advantage, seeing where the trends are, what's producing higher value leads, what's not, what's producing higher contract value leads, what's not. In the keywords menu for, let's say, you could go and add a custom column for conversion value over cost, and that'll tell you which keywords are producing the highest lead score per dollar of ad spend for you to optimize. And the same thing if you're doing predicted contract value, so you can kind of see where the value is specifically coming from. Like I said, you don't want to switch your campaigns to optimize though for qualified leads with a high average lead score using maximize conversion value bidding strategy until you've got at least a few dozen of these conversions, and better yet is a few hundred. And better yet, along with that, if your sales are naturally going up on their own, I would not use the data until you start plateauing your results and you can't grow your account anymore. Why? Because when you switch your campaigns to optimize for leads to predicted contract value divided by ad spend, which is a proxy to our true ROI, it's going to create some negative volatility in your account for a good 60 days. And you might go backwards in terms of your results, upwards of 50% for 60 days. Things will restabilize and then you'll take off like a rocket after. Big changes in Google Ads always are going to cause your results to be volatile like that, but you got to make changes to get more performance overall. And if you can't tolerate that, what I recommend you do is you switch only one campaign at a time from maximize conversions to maximize conversion value bidding strategy, so that only 10-20% of your account is going through this transition at any given time, so you won't notice your ROI overall going down while you transition these campaigns over to optimizing for higher lead score and higher predicted contract value. Optimizing for predicted contract value is not as good as optimizing for sales, but it's a hell of a lot better than optimizing for cheaper leads, because the cheapest leads are never going to be the best leads, respectively. And in fact, it's usually the cheaper leads are the worst leads, right? So the only way to constantly get better leads and to constantly make more money once you've plateaued your results, optimizing for just more leads in general, is to actually get better quality data. And then you switch over to maximize conversion value bidding strategy and you start taking advantage of the data that you have. So you may say, well, that's so far out in the future, I'll worry about it later. Half the value of the ad spend that you're paying for right now is just, if you're tracking everything right, is just the collection of the data that tells you what works and what doesn't work. What brings in big contracts, what doesn't. What brings in very good leads versus what doesn't. And you build it up so that one day when you eventually hit a roadblock with your account, you have the ability to switch over to optimizing for lead scores right away or predicted contract value right away. And then you don't have to wait 18 months or whatever to set up your offline conversion goals that track these two things and build up the data in the background. You have the offline goals that you have to track lead score and predicted contract value set up there so that you mark them secondary. You can mark a goal, conversion goal primary or secondary. If a goal is marked in primary, the campaigns utilize it for bidding strategy, for guiding the campaigns. If it's in secondary, it's only just collecting data in the background so that you can collect data, not utilizing it until the day when you do need to utilize it, so that when you do need to utilize it, it's there and you have amassed a certain minimum amount of data for it to actually help you overall, because you need a certain minimum amount of that data for the machine learning algorithms to actually get you better results than what it was getting you looking at the lead data, which you have a decent amount of it. As a side, by the way, if you don't like manually uploading the conversions in CallRail, if you want to score your leads and you put in the value box on CallRail the lead score, you can actually have that lead score automatically, if you set up the settings right, show up under your phone goal in Google Ads. If you set up the CallRail to Google Ads integration through CallRail, it'll automatically create a phone call goal. It'll also automatically create a form goal itself. If you fill out the value box with the lead score, it'll automatically show the value of that lead score under the phone call goal that it creates or form call that it creates automatically without having to take the data from CallRail, put it into a spreadsheet, and then upload it via the uploads menu in Google Ads. I just wanted to point that out as a separate thing in case some of you guys want to do things that way. For me, I don't want to do it that way though, because I want to be able to see my qualified lead data differently and separate than my lead data overall. And I want to be able to have the control to ultimately be able to have the campaigns optimized for qualified leads itself separately than just leads in general. Even though technically, because if you were going to switch from optimizing for leads to just qualified leads, unless you had the goal separated out for leads and qualified leads, you couldn't do it. If you're going to switch from optimizing for leads to lead score, and you had the lead scores going into the phone call goal and the form goal that the integration creates, and you switch your campaigns from maximize conversions to maximize conversion value bidding strategy, then you wouldn't need a separate goal to do that, because it would just start looking at the value the goal, not, whether the goal triggered or not, if that makes sense. So anyway, just some other things to consider and mention there. With all that said, if you want to know a lot more about how to do this kind of setup successfully, you should check out my other videos. I got a ton of videos about quote unquote offline conversion tracking, where you could even track the value of SMS leads that you get that come in, live chat leads that come in as well, and making sure you don't lose any sales data or lead score data or contract value data that come from those, as well as ways to automate this process, so forth. You can search for any videos I have about offline conversion tracking on this channel, and I come out with new information about how to make this easier all the time and case studies as to how well it works. Track and optimizing for contract value versus just leads will typically get you a good 3 times more out of your Google Ads in terms of profit long term than you would without it, which shows you the value of this. But all this information I share with you on this channel for free because I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm to give you all the information about what works and what doesn't work on this channel. And that's unique because most of the yahoos here on YouTube talking about ad strategy don't even manage any ads themselves. Maybe they own a firm, they don't manage their own ads, or they just sell courses, they don't manage any ads. So that's very important in terms of knowing who to learn from that actually has the real knowledge that'll help you excel with what you're doing and actually make money. Anybody could talk about Google Ads. There's another thing, just seeing the ads, what works and what doesn't work, and then commenting on it. So you should subscribe if you haven't already, in other words. Seriously. Furthermore, you should check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. That blog is written by myself, and I share my strategies about what works to guarantee our clients results there and how to do them with screenshots, with all the rest of it. If you really want to know what works, you should check that out as well. And if you have any questions about anything I talked about here, about using your data about lead scoring or predicted contract value in your account to steer your ads with, or setting up your CRM to give you a rolling ROI figure, lifetime value ROI figure, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, typically within 24 hours. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you very much for watching as usual, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said Google ADs was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.